It was a quiet morning in a nice suburban neighborhood. The lawns were neat, the mailboxes freshly painted, and almost everyone knew everyone. The kind of place where people waved from their driveways and smiled at the grocery store. But that peace didn't last long. A new woman had just moved in, a black woman, named Alicia Brown. She arrived in a silver SUV, parked carefully in front of the house at the end of the street, and stepped out wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt. She looked tired, but excited, ready to start fresh. She had bought that house herself after saving for years. It was her dream, a peaceful home after 10 long years serving in the military. She was finally ready to build a quiet life, away from bases, noise, and long deployments. But her new neighbor didn't see it that way. Across the street, behind white curtains, someone was watching. Her name was Karen Miller, president of the local homeowners association, or HOA. She liked things to be perfect. The grass had to be trimmed just right. The mailboxes had to match. And apparently, she also thought the people had to fit in. When Karen saw Alicia unloading boxes from her car, she frowned. She didn't recognize her, didn't expect her, and didn't like surprises. Within an hour, Karen was outside, pretending to water her plants. But really, she was watching every move. Alicia noticed her. She smiled politely and waved. Karen didn't wave back. The first encounter, Alicia was unpacking a box on her porch when Karen finally walked over. Holding her little clipboard, the symbol of her power in the neighborhood. "Excuse me," Karen said with a forced smile. "Can I ask what you're doing here?" Alicia blinked, confused. I live here now." "Just moved in yesterday?" Karen tilted her head. "Really? I wasn't informed of any sale on this property. Usually we approve new residents before they move in." Alicia chuckled softly, trying to keep things friendly. "I didn't know neighbors needed approval to move into their own home." That didn't sit well with Karen. Her smile faded. "Well," she said sharply, "we have rules here. We like to make sure our community stays ... nice." Alicia could feel what she really meant. But she didn't want to start trouble. "Don't worry," she said calmly. "I take care of my home. Always have." Karen walked away, muttering under her breath. But her mind was racing. Something about Alicia bothered her, and she couldn't let it go. The suspicion grows over the next few days. Karen kept watching. She noticed Alicia's friends helping with furniture. She noticed her car parked slightly over the line. She even noticed a delivery truck staying for too long. Each small thing became a big problem in Karen's mind. By the third day, she convinced herself that something wasn't right. She told a few neighbors, "I don't think that woman belongs here. I've seen her doing strange things." Of course, none of it was true. Alicia was just settling in, arranging furniture, hanging curtains, planting flowers in her small front yard. But rumors spread fast in quiet places. The call that afternoon, Karen made a decision. She dialed 911. "Yes," she told the operator. "There's a suspicious woman moving things into a house. I don't think she's supposed to be there. Maybe she's breaking in." Minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Some filmed on their phones. Alicia walked out onto the porch, surprised and confused. She saw the officers approaching and asked calmly, "Is there a problem?" Before she could finish, Karen marched across the street, pointing. "There, that's her. I told you she doesn't live here." But as the officers asked for identification, something unexpected happened. Alicia quietly reached into her wallet and handed them a card. It was her U.S. military ID with her photo, rank, and name printed clearly. And in that moment, Karen froze. Her face went pale. The whole street went silent, because the woman she had just called the cops on was a decorated veteran who had served her country for 10 years, defending people just like Hertha. Air turned heavy as Alicia stood on her porch. Holding her military ID, the officers looked at it carefully, then at her calm face. One of them nodded slowly, realizing what had just happened. "Ma'am," he said politely, "we're sorry for the confusion. Just a misunderstanding." Alicia smiled faintly. "I understand, officer. You're just doing your job." But her eyes flicked toward Karen, the woman standing on the curb, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. Karen's face had lost all its color. The confidence she had a minute ago was gone. Now she looked small, embarrassed, and cornered. The neighborhood watch as the scene had drawn a small crowd. Curtains moved. Cell phones recorded. A few neighbors stepped outside, pretending to check their mail. But really, they wanted to see what was going on. "Everything okay, officer?" One man called out. The officer nodded. "All good. Just a misunderstanding," but everyone already knew it wasn't just that. They had seen Karen pointing, yelling, and calling the cops on a woman who hadn't done anything wrong. Alicia stayed calm. She didn't shout, didn't argue. She only asked one question. "Was the call anonymous?" she said softly. The officer sighed. "No, ma'am. Your neighbor made it." He glanced at Karen. Karen froze again. Every eye on the street turned to her. The same woman who always told others how to behave, who to park where, and when to mow their lawn now stood exposed for what she had done. Alicia looked at her for a long moment, then simply said, "Thank you for your concern, but I'm exactly where I belong." Then she turned and walked back inside. Closing the door quietly behind her, the silence that followed felt louder than any siren. Karen's guilt that night. Karen couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the scene in her mind, the flashing lights, the neighbors' faces, the calm power in Alicia's eyes. She tried to tell herself she had done the right thing. "I was protecting the neighborhood," she thought. It could have been anyone breaking in, but deep down, she knew the truth. She hadn't called because she saw danger. She had called because she saw someone different, someone she didn't understand. Her husband tried to comfort her. "Maybe you should go over there, apologize," he said gently. Karen shook her head. "Not now. Maybe later." Later never came. She couldn't face the woman who had looked stronger than her without saying a single angry word. Alicia's strength inside her home. Alicia unpacked the last box. It had her medals, small pieces of metal that carried years of sacrifice. She placed them on the mantel and stood quietly, breathing deeply. She wasn't angry. She had seen worse in her life. She had been shouted at in foreign lands, faced storms, seen fear in the eyes of men who called themselves brave. But something about this moment still hurt. Not because of what Karen did, but because of how familiar it felt. Still, Alicia wasn't the type to let pain define her. She decided she wouldn't hide. She would be visible. She would be kind. She would let her presence speak louder than their prejudice. The next morning, she put on her uniform jacket, not because she had to, but because she wanted to remind herself who she was. Then she stepped outside to water her plants. Just like any other neighbor, the change begins slowly. Things started to shift. One by one, other neighbors began to greet her. A couple brought her cookies. A child waved at her car every morning. People started asking her about her service, and she answered with warmth. Karen saw it all from her window. Every smile Alicia received felt like a mirror showing her own mistake. One afternoon, when Alicia was trimming her hedges, Karen finally walked over. She looked nervous, holding a small plate of muffins. "Hi," Karen said quietly. "I just wanted to welcome you properly." Alicia looked at her for a moment, then smiled. "Thank you. I appreciate that." Karen nodded awkwardly. I didn't know you were in the military." "You must have seen a lot." Alicia looked her straight in the eye. "Yes, ma'am. Enough to know that courage isn't about calling the cops. It's about facing what you fear and treating people right." Karen's eyes watered. She didn't have an answer. She just whispered, "You're right." She turned to walk away. Alicia said softly, "It's never too late to do better." And for the first time, Karen felt something she hadn't felt in years. Respect. Days passed, and the air in the neighborhood began to shift. The same street that once felt tense now carried a new kind of silence. Not awkward, but thoughtful. People had seen what happened, and though no one said it out loud, everyone knew something inside them had changed. Alicia continued with her routine. Every morning, she watered her small garden, greeted the mailman, and took her dog, Rocky, for a walk. She smiled easily, never showing bitterness. But behind that calm smile was quiet strength, the kind that didn't need to shout to be seen. Karen watched from her window every morning. She noticed how people started waving to Alicia first, how the kids loved Rocky, and how everyone now seemed to include her in conversations that Karen herself once led. It stung. The woman she had once seen as a stranger was now the heart of the street. The meeting a week later, the Homeowners Association held its monthly meeting. It was supposed to be about budgets, lawns, and parking spaces, but everyone knew the real reason they came, to see how Karen would act after the incident. Karen sat at the front, papers neatly stacked, hands trembling slightly. The chatter around her was low, but she could hear whispers, "That's her." She called the cops on that poor woman. The first time, Karen felt small in a room she used to control. Then the door opened. Alicia walked in. She wore simple jeans and a blue shirt, her military ID still clipped to her bag. The room went quiet. Karen's throat tightened. "Good evening," Alicia said softly. "I hope it's okay that I join. I live here now, and I want to be part of the community." The members exchanged looks. Then someone smiled and said, "Of course you're welcome." Another nodded. And just like that, Alicia took a seat right across from Karen. The apology that took courage when the meeting ended. People started leaving, but Karen stayed behind. Her heart pounded. She knew this was her moment. Maybe her only chance to make things right. She stood up slowly and walked over. Alicia looked up, calm as always. "Can we talk?" Karen asked quietly. Alicia nodded. "Sure." Karen swallowed hard. Her voice shook. "I was wrong. I judged you without reason. I made assumptions that I'm not proud of. Embarrassed you in front of everyone, and I'm sorry." Alicia looked at her carefully, as if deciding whether the apology was real. Then she said, "I appreciate your honesty. That takes courage." Karen exhaled, relief washing over her. "You didn't have to forgive me." Alicia smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But if I can forgive people in a war zone, I can forgive someone in my neighborhood." Karen let out a small, nervous laugh. For the first time, they both smiled, not as enemies, but as two people learning to understand each other. The unexpected letter, a few days later, something arrived in Karen's mailbox. It was a small envelope with Alicia's handwriting on it. Inside was a short note. "Hi Karen, thank you for coming forward. It means a lot. I'm hosting a small get-together this weekend. Just neighbors, nothing fancy. I'd love for you to come. Alicia." Karen stared at the note for a long time. Her first instinct was to say no. But something inside told her this was important, a chance to show she had changed. The gathering Saturday evening came. The sun was setting golden across the street. Alicia's backyard glowed with string lights and laughter. The smell of barbecue filled the air. Neighbors mingled, kids ran around, and music played softly in the background. When Karen walked in, everyone turned to look. But instead of judgment, there was warmth. Alicia waved her over. "You made it," she said with a smile. Karen nodded, feeling awkward, but welcomed. Wouldn't miss it. They talked for hours that night about life, about service, about fear and growth. Karen listened more than she spoke. For once, she wasn't the one giving orders. She was learning. At one point, she whispered, "I wish I had known you before all that happened," Alicia replied. "Sometimes life introduces people the hard way. What matters is how they choose to stay." Karen nodded, eyes misty. The lesson in the light. When the night ended, Alicia handed Karen a small slice of pie to take home. "For tomorrow," she said. As Karen walked back across the street, she looked around. For the first time, the neighborhood felt different, warmer, kinder, alive. She realized it wasn't the houses or the fences that made a community. It was understanding. That night, Karen placed the pie on her kitchen counter, sat by the window, and smiled at the lights glowing from Alicia's house. Because now, she knew, change doesn't start with rules. It starts with heart. The next few weeks were peaceful. The neighborhood, once divided by silence and suspicion, was now filled with laughter and small acts of kindness. Alicia had become the soul of the street, helping an old couple with groceries, fixing a broken mailbox, even organizing morning walks with a few neighbors. Karen, too, had changed. She smiled more, spoke softly, and listened carefully. People began to see a different side of her, a side she herself didn't know existed. But just as everything started to heal, life decided to test them all again. The complaint one gray morning, a letter arrived in Alicia's mailbox, stamped with the HOA logo. It was a notice of violation. According to the letter, her American flag, which she proudly displayed on her porch, was too large and not in compliance with HOA rules. Alicia frowned as she read it. She had measured it herself. It was perfectly fine. But the letter warned her that she would be fined if she didn't remove it within 3 days. For a moment, she felt the old frustration rise in her chest. She thought the neighborhood had moved past this. But something about the tone of that letter, cold, distant, almost familiar, made her realize that not everyone had changed. Karen's reaction. Karen found out about the letter the same afternoon. She was shocked. "What? That's ridiculous," she said when Alicia showed it to her. "The flag looks perfect. I didn't approve this." Alicia smiled sadly. Be someone else decided it was a problem. Karen clenched her jaw. "Oh, not again." That evening, Karen went through the HOA records. She discovered that another board member, a man named Greg Thompson, had filed the complaint. He was known for being strict about rules, but even stricter about who he liked. Karen realized something. The same bias she once carried still lived in others. This time, she wouldn't stay silent. The meeting of confrontation, the next HOA meeting, was packed, more people attended than ever before. Everyone wanted to know what would happen with Alicia's flag. Greg, a tall man with a stern face, opened the discussion. "We have to follow the rules," he said firmly. "The flag is too large. It violates Section 7, Paragraph 3. Alicia sat quietly, her hands folded. Karen, sitting next to her, felt her heart pounding. Then she stood up. "Greg," she said calmly, "do you know what that flag means to her?" Greg rolled his eyes. "This isn't personal, Karen. It's about the rules." Karen took a deep breath. "Sometimes rules are used to hide what's really going on." She turned to the crowd. "We all saw what happened last month. We all saw how quick we were to judge someone just because they were different. Are we really going to do that again over a flag?" The room went quiet. Greg shifted uncomfortably. Alicia finally spoke. Her voice was steady, but her words carried weight. "That flag has been with me through war zones, sandstorms, and sleepless nights. It's more than cloth to me. It's a reminder of what I fought for. Freedom, equality, the right to call any place home." Her words hung in the air like a prayer. One by one, neighbors nodded. Someone clapped, and another. Soon the whole room was filled with applause. Greg looked defeated. "Fine," he muttered. "The flag stays." The moment of unity after the meeting, people gathered outside. Someone brought lemonade. Kids ran around laughing. The tension that had once poisoned the street was gone, replaced by pride. Karen stood beside Alicia, smiling.
"You did it,"
she said. Alicia shook her head. "We did it." Karen looked at the flag waving softly in the evening breeze. "You know," she said a few weeks ago, "I didn't understand what that flag really meant. Now I think I do." Alicia smiled warmly. "It's not about perfection. It's about standing for what's right, even when it's not easy." Karen nodded. "Guess I learned that from the best." They both laughed softly as the sun dipped below the rooftops, painting the sky gold and red. The quiet after the storm that night, the neighborhood felt alive. Lights glowed in every window. For the first time in years, people didn't just live next to each other, they belonged together. Karen looked out from her porch, her eyes resting on Alicia's home. Flags still waved proudly, and she realized something powerful. Sometimes it takes one brave heart to remind everyone else what unity really means. As the wind carried the sound of laughter down the street, Karen whispered to herself, "This is what home should feel like." It happened on a quiet Friday night. The air was still, and most of the neighborhood lights were off. Alicia was reading on her couch, Rocky sleeping beside her. Across the street, Karen was finishing up some paperwork for the HOA. Everything seemed normal, till a faint smell of smoke drifted through the air. At first, Karen thought it was just someone burning leaves, but within minutes, the smell grew stronger. She stepped outside, looked around, froze. A faint orange glow flickered from the corner house, Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins' place. Then came the sound of crackling wood. Flames were climbing up the side of the porch. Karen's heart stopped. "Oh my God, fire!" She screamed the alarm without thinking. She ran to her driveway and started banging on doors. "Fire! Somebody call 911." She shouted. Lights flicked on across the street. People began stepping outside, confused and half asleep. Alicia heard the shouting and ran out immediately. When she saw the flames, her military instincts kicked in. "Karen, where are the Jenkins?" She yelled. "They're still inside," Karen cried. Alicia didn't hesitate. She sprinted straight toward the burning house. The rescue the fire had already reached the front windows. Smoke poured from the roof. Alicia wrapped her arm around her mouth and pushed through the front door. Inside, the heat was unbearable. She could barely see. "Mr. Jenkins. Mrs. Jenkins," she shouted. A weak voice answered from the hallway. Alicia followed the sound and found them. The old couple trapped near the stairs. Mrs. Jenkins was coughing hard, struggling to breathe. "It's okay," Alicia said firmly. "I've got you." She helped them both to their feet and guided them out, one arm around each of them. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop until they were safely outside. As soon as they reached the lawn, neighbors rushed to help. Someone threw a blanket over Mrs. Jenkins. Karen stood frozen, tears in her eyes, watching Alicia emerge from the smoke like a hero from a movie. The fire truck arrived minutes later. Sirens wailing, lights flashing red against the night sky. A hero. Once more, paramedics checked everyone. The Jenkins were shaken, but safe. Alicia had some smoke on her skin and soot in her hair, but she smiled through it all. Karen approached slowly. "You could have died in there," she whispered. Alicia shrugged lightly. "I've been in worse. Besides, they needed help." Karen shook her head. "You keep proving what kind of person you are. And every time you do, I feel smaller for the way I treated you." Alicia placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're learning. That's what matters. Change doesn't come easy, but it's worth it." Karen's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." "Live differently," Alicia said simply. "That's thanks enough." The next morning by sunrise, the fire was out. The Jenkins house was damaged, but they were alive, and everyone knew who to thank. Word spread quickly. By noon, the story was all over the local news. "Veteran rescues elderly couple from fire," the headline read. When the reporter came to interview her, Alicia didn't brag. She only said, "I did what anyone should do for their neighbors." But Karen knew that wasn't true. Not anyone would have done what she did. That evening, Karen knocked on Alicia's door again, this time holding something small, a new flag, folded neatly. "I thought you might need this," Karen said softly. "The old one got a little smoke damage." Alicia took it gently, smiling. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Karen replied. "That flag, it means something to me now. Because of you." Alicia looked touched. "Thank you, Karen. You've come a long way." Karen laughed lightly. "Well, I had a good teacher." The gift of respect. That weekend, the whole neighborhood came together. They helped the Jenkins clean up, raise funds for repairs, and even set up meals for the week. For the first time, the street wasn't divided by fences or gossip. It was united by kindness. As the sun set that evening, Alicia stood on her porch beside Karen, watching the community she helped heal. "You know," Karen said, "I used to think keeping order made a neighborhood strong. But now I see it's compassion that keeps it alive." Alicia smiled, eyes soft. "Exactly. Rules can build walls. Kindness builds bridges." Karen nodded, voice trembling. "You saved more than lives that night. You saved this whole community." Alicia looked at the sky, the flag waving gently in the wind. "No," she said quietly. "We saved each other." A week after the fire, life on Maple Street felt different. The smell of smoke had faded, but something else remained. A sense of unity that no one had ever felt before. People greeted each other warmly. Kids played freely. Even the quiet neighbors came out to chat, and every conversation seemed to end with the same words. "Did you hear what Alicia did?" News reporters had come and gone, but the story stayed alive. The local paper called her the hero of Maple Street. But Alicia didn't care about titles. She only cared that the Jenkins were safe, and that the neighborhood was finally becoming a real community. Still, she had no idea that something even bigger was being planned for her. The plan one afternoon, while Alicia was planting flowers by her porch, Karen came over, trying to hide a smile. "Busy as always?" Karen teased. Alicia laughed. "Can't help it. The garden keeps me grounded." Karen looked around, pretending to admire the plants, but her eyes were bright with a secret. "So, make sure you're free this Saturday evening," she said. "It's important." Alicia raised an eyebrow. "Important? Like another HOA meeting?" Karen grinned. "Not exactly," and she walked away before Alicia could ask anything else. Saturday evening, by sunset, the whole street was buzzing. Cars lined the road. Kids carried balloons. Someone set up a small stage by the park entrance. String lights hung from trees, glowing softly in the warm air. Alicia stood on her porch, confused. Rocky wagged his tail, as if he knew something she didn't. Then she heard it, her name over a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, can we have Alicia Brown join us here?" It was Karen's voice. People started cheering. Alicia blushed and walked over, wondering what was going on. The speech, when she reached the stage. Karen smiled and handed her a small box wrapped in blue paper. "Alicia," Karen began, her voice shaking just a little, "when you first moved here, I didn't see you for who you were. I saw you as different, and I was wrong. You taught me, and all of us, what real strength looks like. You didn't just save the Jenkins. You saved us from ourselves." The crowd applauded. "Some people wiped their eyes," Karen continued. "This community owes you more than words can say. So, on behalf of everyone on Maple Street, we want to thank you." She opened the box and pulled out a beautiful metal plaque. It read, "In honor of Alicia Brown, for bravery, kindness, and the spirit that unites us." Alicia covered her mouth, touched and speechless. A moment of truth. When the clapping finally stopped, Alicia took the microphone. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shone with emotion. "Thank you," she said softly. "I came here looking for peace, but I found something better. Family. This street isn't just a place to live. It's a place to grow, to learn, and to forgive." She looked at Karen and smiled. "And sometimes, it takes a little conflict to wake us up to what really matters." The crowd cheered again. Someone started chanting, "Alicia, Alicia," and soon the whole park joined in. Karen wiped her eyes and laughed. "Guess you're stuck with us now," she joked. Alicia grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The flag rises, the night darkened. Karen motioned to the side of the stage. Two teenagers stepped forward, carrying a flagpole the same size and style as Alicia's own. At the top fluttered a new flag. Fresh and bright, Karen spoke again. "This flag represents all of us, our past, our mistakes, and our growth. And we want it to fly right here, in the center of the neighborhood park." Alicia helped them raise it. As the flag climbed up, the crowd went silent. The wind caught it, unfolding the stars and stripes under the streetlights. It was beautiful, not just as a symbol, but as a reminder of how far they had come. When it reached the top, Alicia saluted quietly. Karen stood beside her, hand over heart. For a moment, there were no labels, no past, no divisions, just neighbors united under one sky. The morning after the next day, the flag still waved proudly. Children pointed to it as they walked to school. People smiled when they passed by. Karen sat on her porch with a cup of coffee, watching Alicia across the street. Alicia was laughing with the Jenkins, helping them repaint a wall. Karen thought back to that first day, the day she had called the cops on a woman she didn't even know. The memory stung, but now it also taught her something beautiful. People could change. Communities could heal. And sometimes one person's bravery could rewrite everyone's story. She stood up, walked down her steps, and called out, "Hey, Alicia, need an extra hand?" Alicia looked up and smiled. "Always?" And as they painted side by side, The flag above them fluttered softly in the morning breeze, a symbol of new beginnings and the power of understanding. Because in the end, what made Maple Street beautiful wasn't the perfect lawns or the matching mailboxes. It was the people who learned to see each other and chose to love anyway.